Hello, it's me again. Today I want to talk about my favorite man of all times, Leonardo Da Vinci. I will start with the first encounter. I was a girl, and I was a girl in 70s, and back then Italian television actually filmed a serial about his life. I remember, I think every scene, my parents bought a book about that with illustrations about all his works and projects. My first encounter with Leonardo da Vinci as polymath and medieval the man, someone who actually changed every single area that he was active in, considering painting. He was so innovative, nobody can beat him even today. From engineering, inventing different machines, doing all kind of things, even music. I will get to that later. He was a figure I always thought somehow familiar because he was not understood. And that feeling that he was such a precious human being. Whenever I read how they treated him in several situations, he was simply refusing to adapt to the atmosphere of gossip, of manipulations and things like that. And he was doing his thing. And 500 years after his life, we are beginning to appreciate his contribution to every field possible. So today I was watching a beautiful movie, which is, I guess, one of the attempts which originated during a pandemic to actually make very high-resolution recordings of masterpieces of art, so people like you and me can watch it without the need to go to the museum. So I was satisfied actually that I in person was lucky, that I was lucky to see in person all but two paintings. And it is such a delight that you can see in detail screening of every single picture. So I would like to point out here for those of you who are interested in Leonardo on several different resources where you can find more about him. For example, the movie, actually the series of movies, which is broadcasted by Rai, national television in Italy, is actually accessible online. On YouTube you can find everything you want, and among the majority of things that I can find, one of the most precious things was that I was capable of watching again something that really determined my life, because my decision to invest a big chunk of my life in studying about science and studying about art, I think began when I was watching that movie. So I think that another very well-rounded resource is open culture. It is really a gem. You can find a lot of exquisite things there. Among others, there the whole bunch of documents which are in English Queen collection in Windsor. You can find all drawings which are in England. You can find transcripts of the documents, because he was making very detailed account about his everyday life, about the questions he's asking himself, about even what he's planning to have for lunch, about his problems with his young pupil, who is really mischievous, also about the details about masterpieces of other people. He was interested in mathematics. Luca Pacioli, one of the first prominent mathematicians among the biggest prominent mathematicians of that time in Italy, was actually visiting India, and he came back with some concepts, and there is evidence they were discussing about that. Also, he was knowledgeable about the technique of melting some metals, and his practical knowledge, which is applicable in art, was actually coming to Leonardo through him. Also, you can see that he was immensely curious about a number of things, and he was contacting other people whenever he heard that somebody solved a problem. He meant a note in his notebooks that he should ask someone about the source of this and this. And famously, he made a most challenging to-do list, as you can find on Open Culture website. For example, to draw the whole plan of city of Milan, or to calculate the circumference of, I don't know, celestial bodies. And he was also, I simply don't know which was the best detail I learned about his life. One of the recipes of this is a book written by Martin Kemp and Giuseppe Palanti. This is a book. This is a gem. Martin Kemp is a professor, emeritus professor at Cambridge, and he's one of the best experts in Leonardo's life and art of that medieval period. This is 15th and 16th century Italian art, and he basically discovered several of his works that were not confirmed. For example, Principessa, which was found in Poland because it was a portrait made by Leonardo, which was not signed, but it was a one page in very luxuriously made history of Milan family. Lodovico Moro was the patriarch of that family, and based on the knowledge and based on documents, because even illegitimate children of people in medieval Italy were christened, and so you can find trace, and they were connected somehow in the family. With Leonardo happened actually the same. He was illegitimate son of notarius in prominent figure in life in Florence. He was a lawyer, and he was representing many people in court, and he had 3 marriages and many children. I think Leonardo had something like 20 cousins. He was illegitimate son, and although that blocked him the access of official positions, for example, in state and law, he also got help from his father unofficially, and he supported him, for example, to find his career, because when he was very young, I think he was 11 or 12 years old, he came from Vinci, where he used to live with his grandparents and his uncle, who was actually the only father figure that he knew, because her mother was uneducated peasant. She was married after she gave birth to him, and actually they didn't have any contact. It was forbidden. And when he came to Florence to stay with his father and his second wife, once his father realized about his sketching, he showed that to his friend who had bottega. This is actually artistic studio, Andrea Verrocchio, who was actually immediately realized that the boy is very talented, and he actually accepted him the very same day to start learning as apprentice in his studio. And I have a goosebumps talking about that, because those little facts that you can find in Professor Kemp's book and elsewhere are actually giving you the puzzle of life of someone who was forced to withdraw from society. Actually, Leonardo was accused due to his success, and he was successful, and every successful person also can attract some negative attention. So they had a group of artists spending time together, and somebody actually informed the authorities that of some homosexuality, and that was in court, and they couldn't find any evidence. So Leonardo was cleared of accusations, but he was so deeply hurt that he left Florence and go on with his artistic work elsewhere. So to focus on this, I need to focus on this. First of all, when you're watching this beautiful film, you can see in big resolution all existing paintings that Leonardo did, but also some other pieces of art that are later attributed to him. I like to focus on portraits of ladies, because before Leonardo entered the stage as very young apprentice in Verrocchio's Bottega, the standard of painting women was from profile. Leonardo was the first who is actually painting the lady who is looking straight at your face. It was Ginevra Benci's portrait. She was very beautiful, and the level of details of the paysage and the details of her hair and her clothes and her skin and everything is showing that he was actually without concurrence in that time. And unlike other artists of that time, he didn't actually enter in any conflict. He was avoiding this because he was focusing on a lot of things that he wanted to accomplish, and there are a lot of things to do. And one of the saddest things is that when he was dying in arms of Francois I, who was actually giving him sanctuary, he was actually protecting him and being his patron in last 3 years of his life in France. Actually, he was he actually brought with him several paintings that later stayed in France, because he was no longer wanted in Italy, basically. After Leonardo Moro died and after French came in Milan, it was a logical step that he went to France. And Mona Lisa was traveling with him. And the book that I showed you is actually about the facts of that time, so you can realize what people believed in that time, what was their life, how they behaved in their family, how they perceived art and religion, and what they believed should be the aim of life. And Leonardo was actually very before his time. For example, after that accusation in Florence, he started writing from right to left in mirror, because he had dexterity in both hands. He can write with left and right hand, which is really rare, but it was actually a precaution that he was taking, that people could not read what he had written, and he was writing every day. Plus, he was dealing with anatomy. He was dissecting bodies, and he was actually the first person who realizes about how human eye is functioning, how the uterus looks like, how the fetus looks like, how the muscles and all the tissues and layers of the tissues are functioning. And you can see that study in, for example, Saint Jérôme. This was one of the first documented studies of the upper arm, shoulder, and neck. And in physiological and medical sense, this is completely understood, and that didn't change much since then. So one of the things I learned today is that when he wanted to leave the Florence and go to Milan, he wrote medieval CV, and he actually made a list of reasons why Duke of Milan would hire him. And he was telling him about that he is very skilled engineer, that he can navigate the water, that he can make war machines, etc., etc. The list is long. And in the last sentence, he said, "Oh, by the way, I can paint." And on the first occasion when he went to Milan, he was actually sent as a kind of representative artist from Florence to show off in Milan, and he actually beat musicians from Milan playing in the instrument of that time, which is like a lira. And he was better than musicians who are professionals there. They hated him, I'm sure. And one of the male portraits there is Music Man, which is in Pinacoteca in Milan. And it is so big pleasure to read what he wrote 500 years ago, that, for example, what is painting for the sight, this is the music for the ears. And he says the music is the sister to painting, because artists should reincarnate something he saw in reality, put together in his perspective, add a little bit of his own fantasies, like he did with every single landscape you can see on his paintings, and present it to you. It is a kind of digest of polymath's eye and brain, with his experience, with his sense for beauty and the gift from God, as Leonardo believed. And this is really so precious that it is one of the bases of our Western civilization. And there is also another book, Leonardo Da Vinci by Eduardo Villatta. And this is about reproductions of all the known art. And La Bella Principessa is not there because she was discovered the year after the book was published. But you can also see it is in Krakow. And this is one of my next destinations for travel. I saw in high resolution, and I saw how Professor Kemp with his collaborators actually discovered and confirmed the originality of this work. The painting is beautiful, and this is again exquisite beauty of women from Italy of that time. Besides that, I might say that my favorite is not La Ferronnière, La Belle Ferronnière, but the woman before her, and she's Chichilia Galerani, known as Lady with Hermelin. She was actually mistress of Lodovico Moro, and she's a woman of exquisite beauty. She was also very educated, and she was poetess. And some experts say that Leonardo had actually a quite close connection with her. We don't know what kind of relationship they have, but he was calling her in one of his notebooks my white star. This period of history in art is really full of surprises still, and even we are living in this frantic world, some things are keeping their value and can give us joy and excitement, like every person who likes life should recognize art as very significant. And to conclude this video, I cannot put everything that I read and I saw about Leonardo in one video. Maybe I will make another one soon. But it strikes me while I was listening about the projects that he have, like the trial to change the direction of Arno, several engineering works which are very demanding and expensive. And I thought to myself, while listening again about CV and mentioning the painting which he was primary master of, and all times master, should I say, that even today nothing changed, because all the best scientists are working for the rich, for the big companies, and many of them are unfortunately making war machines still. And also the most talented artists are still financed by the rich, because they see that as a prestige. They do that as a part of their PR, as Medici did in Renaissance Florence. And yeah, it is so dear to my heart that whenever I hear something about him and read something about him, it reminds me about how beautiful human can be. He was, before anything else, extraordinary human being. Thank you.